I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kate Champion. I'm an author, therapist, and generally curious human whose life has been full of ups and downs, twists and turns, mess and adventures, some intentional and some not so much. Welcome to Living Big Mindfully, a later in life podcast. Here are 3 questions for you. Are you ready? Are you in midlife or beyond? Or maybe struggling with next steps or finding your feet? Possibly feeling like something's missing, not quite right with your life? Or maybe you have a sense that you're really not living your own truth. Okay, you're right, that was way more than 3 questions. But were there any yes answers? Yeah? Okay, fantastic. That means that you are in the right place and this is the show for you. So grab a seat, get comfy, and join us for inspiring, heartfelt conversations. Conversations with real people just like you and me. Listen in as we chat about life, love, health, healing, and thriving well into our later years. And let's commit to creating honest, fulfilling lives and giving a high five to living big mindfully. One more thing. Make sure you visit katechampionauthor.com. Check out Never Too Late and You Are Limitless, my best-selling books. And while you're there, be sure to download your free hiking guide. And remember, check out our Living Big Mindfully community on Facebook. And please share your favorite episode with your friends. Thank you so much. Okay, that is enough for me. Are you ready? Great. Then let's dive in. Today on Living Big Mindfully, we are exploring addiction with sober mindset master James Mcilwain. Here in the US, September is Recovery Month. Addiction continues to affect millions of people and families throughout the world. So with the intention of honoring anyone who is personally or has a loved one struggling with an addiction, this episode is dedicated to you. Addiction also continues to affect my life in many ways. So I guess that's why I'm so passionate about the subject. James caught my attention because he has a different twist on things, and I was curious. Of course, like most people who have spent years in active addiction, James has quite a story, so we begin with a bit about his personal journey. And then we dive in. You'll learn about the power of mindset, the role of choice, and the importance of dealing with and letting go of the past. James shares his 6 tips and strategies for getting and staying sober. And then we chat about triggers, craving plans, how to help a loved one, kindness, and how to find joy again. This conversation is bursting with powerful sage advice, and it doesn't stop there. The show notes are packed with links to books, podcasts, and some of James's favorite mindset mentors. Ultimately, James and I hope that this empowering, no BS conversation somehow, through the magic of the airways, reaches the exact people it needs to reach at just the right time. As James likes to say, stay sober, stay strong, be kind. Enjoy. All right. Hi, James. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. My morning in New Zealand.
Yeah, you're calling from New Zealand. I'm in the United States, my evening. But we've managed to connect today. Thank you, technology.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. James got my attention on Instagram. I'm a therapist and I work a lot with addictions. And so he's got some really interesting perspective on this whole addiction journey. So I invited James and he graciously accepted. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, James, and then we're going to dive right in.
Okay, so I'm 48, living in New Zealand, born here, but English brought up. You can tell by the accent. I first had my first drunk experience at 8 years old, serving champagne at a wedding, where we were sticking bottles of champagne outside of the marquee, under the marquee, and then going and sipping, and got very drunk and loved it. and got into a lot of trouble. That was experience one. And then it just kind of escalated. I liked it so much. I was then at 9, 10 sipping my parents' alcohol from their cupboard. I mean, it was a ludicrously young age. I was really badly bullied at boarding school. Then that became pot at 11, hard drugs at 12. I mean, I was like the youngest alcoholic drug addict ever. When I left boarding school with a really bad cocaine addiction at 16 and a half, 17, or I had ADHD, but we didn't know till I was 44. My parents kicked me out of home with £20 after living a very privileged life. I lived on the streets for a year, literally. I was kicked out wearing a wax jacket and tweed sports jacket and a flat cap, and spent that year on the streets living with the people that I despised because I was upper class, and I'd been taught that anybody that wasn't upper class, especially on the streets, were vile individuals that would do horrible things to you. It was probably the best year of my life because I went from absolute snobby twat to understanding why everybody was there. And I even met an Exetonian who went to Eton, who looked like the most homeless person ever, who had his story for being on the streets. I had an out. After a year, I rang home and said, okay, I'm done. I just started injecting amphetamines, and I woke up on the top floor of a public toilet, puke all over myself. I'd been smoking opiates. It was bad. Drinking, shoplifting. And I rang home and they said, sweet, go to rehab. We'll take you if you go to rehab. And then you join the armed forces as you're always going to do. So I did. I went to rehab. I joined the Royal Marine Commandos as an officer, which is your equivalent of the Navy SEALs. We would say better. And I did 10 years, multiple tours in Northern Ireland, Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Left with PTSD, was drinking this whole time. It was a drinking culture, but it was more wines and ports and the officers' mess than anything. But when I left, then things started to ramp up. I went to work for what we call an estate agency or real estate company. These were all bucket list things when I was a kid that I wanted to do. And I worked for a year for Connell's, big estate agency, started my own estate agency with a friend. We built it up to 14 offices, but I was doing cocaine most of the time. I had a partner and 2 stepchildren, the only decent partner of my entire life. I was drinking huge amounts, secret drinking. I was an incredible listing agent. What I did at work was amazing. But underlying that was addiction, and I stuffed that completely. I ruined that relationship. She just had enough. Don't blame her. 18 months after I left the forces with PTSD, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder. I wasn't taking the medicine and I was self-medicating. And then that led to me being kicked out and sent to New Zealand. And then it ramped up over the years, year on year on year. I got worse. I ended up then curtailing it 6 years ago and working in community mental health. Worked my way up to a community mental health manager, which I loved. But I had to go back to England. Well, my parents wanted me to go back to England for some medical issues that they felt could be sorted better at home. Hashtag possible cancer, it wasn't. But living with mum and dad at that age and being micromanaged long term was a problem. And I was then drinking probably 3/4 of a bottle of vodka a day, smoking half an ounce plus of weed a week, plus extra drugs. Then I got thrown out of the country again after a year. And then I took it to 1.5 litres of vodka a day, plus drugs, to the point where I was constantly suicidal. I was constantly in and out of mental hospital. There's probably a better word for it these days. Psychiatric hospital. My body was shutting down. I was on the verge of cirrhosis of the liver. My kidneys were in dire issues. I got made homeless by the woman I was flatting with. So I was living in a government motel. And that was it. I was just one day, I don't remember. It was so awful. I'd lost a passion for everything. I even didn't like music. Music's always been the most important thing for me in my life. And I remember sitting in my car, not driving, but sitting in my car outside going, I just don't even like music anymore. I'm done. Just everything. So at 11 o'clock in the morning, I was 3 bottles of wine deep. And I was like, I just can't do this. And for whatever reason, there was an ambulance. I didn't want to go. And I was in hysterics. And I don't remember much after that. But I stayed in hospital and I detoxed for 5 days. And almost as soon as I got to hospital, I had this very strange looking down on myself out of body type experience. And seeing mentally 2 roads, go left and you die, go right and you survive. Oh. And I chose to live. The rest is history. 4 years just passed, AUD free. Alcohol use disorder, which has replaced alcoholism in most genres for people who don't know, because I don't like the word alcoholism. It's not used much anymore. AUD. But yeah, 4 years free, doing it easy, no problem. So that's my history in a nutshell.
It was so powerful when you just had that out-of-body experience and you could really, something, right, showed you, left or right, this way or that way. You live or die. That's the
best way I could explain it.
Yeah, you choose, right? You choose, live or die. Right.
And I would have died. It would have been suicide or cirrhosis. Likely suicide.
Yeah, but that's what it is, right? I mean, chronic addiction is basically a slow, painful way to kill yourself, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's basically what it is, right? Without untreated, chronic, long-term, it's basically that person just, for some reason, they just don't want to live, right? And it's an appropriate way to slowly kill yourself.
Well, I'd been in a liver ward in Birmingham after taking 160 paracetamol earlier in my life. So it wasn't a cry for help, because apparently 25 paracetamol will kill you, but I survived it. And I spent 4 weeks in a liver ward, and you could smell death. And the consultant told me that 85% of the people in that ward would die or were dying at that time and would not get a liver transplant. And I spoke to people and I smelt it. I saw it. I saw end of life through cirrhosis. Wow. Wasn't enough to stop me. But in the end, I think it was, but at the time it wasn't. But I was there for an overdose, not for my liver, right? Because I'd had my missus left me with my daughter. Not a good way to go.
Right. So let's just take a breath for a second. I just need you all right, so what is your take on addiction, right? What is your take? I mean, clearly you've been through so much. You've been 4 years addiction-free, or however you want to term that. 4 years healthy, 4 years thriving. What is your take on addiction? Because I know you have a different angle. I'd love to hear a little bit about that from you.
So I'm slightly controversial, and addiction, I think I see as a choice. When you don't have a choice, somebody puts a gun to your head. When you have a choice, you do it voluntarily. Yes, it's very difficult. Yes, it is now being seen as disease. But you still have a choice, because I had a choice to stop. So therefore, I had a choice to carry on. But it was a very hard choice not to. It's a very, very evil disease. And one that a lot of people don't even know they've got. I mean, New Zealand has literally gone with the World Health Organization recently and said that the safe amount of alcohol to drink a week for anyone is 0. As we've often heard over the years, 28 units for men, 15 for women, blah, blah, blah. 0. So I think people who are drinking a bottle of wine a night or half a bottle of wine a night are addicts. I mean, they've got a serious problem. They just don't realize it. I ended up at the really, really, really serious tip of the iceberg. But all of those people under, and many people that I know who will say, I don't have an addiction, do. And they're also very critical of illegal drugs. Alcohol has been, for a long time, so I remember 2009, Professor David Nutt in England was fired by Gordon Brown, the then Prime Minister. And he's the leading man in the world of addictions, because he said that alcohol and cigarettes were the most dangerous drugs. And he got sacked for it. Alcohol has no therapeutic benefit, nor does tobacco. Every other illegal drug except cocaine has a therapeutic benefit, be it opiates in hospital, psilocybin in magic mushrooms or LSD in depression, ketamine used in hospitals, etc., etc. Alcohol has none. It is just purely addictive, and it's derived from ethanol, which is in its rawest form a very nasty poison, right?
Right. How does it? I mean, when I heard your story, I heard you say that when you were, 8 or 9 or so, you had this champagne experience, and when I heard you talk about that, it was almost like that for you in your brain, in your chemistry, that alcohol just lit up your brain. It was like, whoosh. It was such a powerful, But I'd actually been drinking younger than that. That was the first time I got drunk. Okay. In the upper classes in England, the middle upper classes, it's very normal to be fed small amounts of alcohol from 5, 6, 7. So on a Sunday, I would have a tiny bit of sherry, or I'd have a watered down wine, a wine with lemonade. Mm-hmm. So I'd already got a taste for it. But that was the first time I got pissed. But I was being fed it, as were all my boarding school friends, from a very young age. Okay. So do you think that was your pathway in, or did you have a genetic predisposition? Did you have alcoholism, mother, father? I mean, do you think that was your pathway in? I'm adopted, so I don't know that. But I do have a mother that won't listen to this, thankfully, so I can speak about it. And her mother, who was secret drinkers, and my mum when I was there 5 years ago, was still secret drinking at 75 and hiding cans and bottles in long boots, and Dad coming down and pouring bottles of gin away. And her mother did the same. So I did see it. And my dad virtually drinks nothing. He's one of the very few people I know that doesn't have any sort of an issue. He will have 1 pint 3 times a week. That is it. Pissed twice in 44 years. Because he's my stepdad, but since like 4 or 5. Drunk twice. That's it. But Mum, yeah. And I ended up a secret drinker, so I was hiding it from girlfriends, and then they were like, oh, I found this in the garden. Why would that be in the garden? I'm like, oh, must have been left by the previous people, but they're like, it's new. And how about this one that I also found in the garden? And that one that I found in your suit pocket? Oh, I don't know how they got my suit. Must have been the fairies. It just got ludicrous. It was like a stupid soap opera. So much denial, right? So much denial. Totally. And I'm a very honest person. Right. When it came to that, no. Yeah. Lie till but that was a learned behavior from what I had seen, 100%. Okay. So you got a question mark on the genetics, but you've got a pretty strong thread in the home environment and the culture. I mean, let's face it, I'm from England too, so I know that culture the alcohol is rampant in that culture. Yeah. So you got the cultural component, you got the environmental component, and then you got some depression on top, right? You got some depression, you got some anxiety, PTSD later. So how does all that fit into this? I've ended up collecting diagnoses in the last 7 years, 6, 7 years: chronic pain, chronic fatigue, PTSD, bipolar 1 disorder, ADHD, which was always there. And there's one other, which I can't even remember. There's 6. Probably PTSD. But I've actually
dealt with most of those well. And the main thing was becoming medication compliant. I didn't like the way that the bipolar medication made me feel at the time. I wasn't willing to let it settle down over months. I went, do a week, F it, I don't like it, I'm not taking it. Which then led to I'm a rapid cycler, so I would go like a roller coaster. And alcohol and drugs were my solution.
The medication, right?
Even though they were making it worse, of course.
Yeah.
To the problem.
Got it.
I mean, just the idea of drinking now is vile. I wouldn't turn to the bottle when my mum dies, no. If the world ends, no. If a plane crashes into my house, no. I just wouldn't do it. There's nothing on earth that would make me want to ever experience that horror again.
Okay. So you've really, like, what I'm hearing, right, is this mind, body, soul, like in any fiber of your being, you have got a hard no, never again.
100%.
And I feel it. Do you think that's what people need to get to? Like this like with every fiber, yes. It's the hard no, 100%, I'm never doing that again.
Yes, and it's not that difficult.
Tell me more about that.
So as soon as I gave up, I studied mindset. I actually read an ex-Royal Marine, Ant Middleton, who is quite famous in the UK. He's been on SAS USA, I think, but he's big in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. We actually served together, but in different units at one stage. But I read his first book, First Man In. Now, Ant Middleton is the king of mindset. He joined the SBS, which is the equivalent of the SAS, Green Beret, I think, in America, the absolute pinnacle of special forces. He left the special forces 2011, turned to drink really badly, ended up in prison for hitting 2 police, and then sorted his mind out. Got a TV show, wrote books, and I picked up his first book and I ate it. I absolutely munched it. Then I read his second book. Then I got into Tony Robbins and I went, mindset. Oh my God, just give me more of this. This is insane. Like, if you can harness what's up here with simple lessons, you can do anything. I've got the best of everything. I have no debt. I've smashed every single goal I've set myself in 4 years, every single one. And the goals are getting bigger. And they will continue to get bigger. And it's mindset. And it's not hard to learn. You have to look for it. And a lot of people are like, oh, but I'm okay, or I can't be bothered, or I'll do it tomorrow. No, do it today. I mean, the likes of Tony Robbins, for people that don't know, and most will, but some won't, the absolute god of life coaching and mindset. Wow. His podcast I need a break after an hour. I'm worn out, literally, because it's just so intense. But I take it in. And I just love mindset. I'll talk mindset to anybody all of the time. So my 6 was having a very strong why. If you want to give up and do it successfully forever, first have a very strong why. Why do I want to give up? I know for this reason. And in mine, I had no life. For others, it's always different. Do it for yourself. Not do it for a partner, because I did that 100 times. Before I gave up finally for what I call the first time, I'd given up for my family, I'd given up for my partner, I'd given up for my kids, but I'd never given up for me. And I was always mentally putting a time limit on things. So you've got to do it for you. Study, eat, listen, watch, follow mindset, and really take it in. Like Ant Middleton's books, Ollie Ollerton's books have, at the end of each chapter, they have the lessons, the bullet points, which you can put a Post-it note in and keep going back to, or take screenshots, and it will just go in, right? Don't overcomplicate it. For me as well, ignore the 12 steps. Absolutely go and see a psychologist if you've got underlying issues and you know why you're drinking, because, and you can't sort that issue out on your own, then you need to work through that issue. So a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whoever you need to see, get through that. I did 3 years of psychology.
Got it.
Over my life. Eventually, it all fell into place. So I didn't do it all on my own, but the psychology was done prior to my give up day to work through other things. And keep it simple and commit. One day at a time is the worst and most flawed thing I've ever heard in my life. If you do one day at a time, you have to commit 365 days of the year to sobriety. I committed once, and I absolutely committed. So from that point on, I knew that was it. There was no choice. There was no relapse or lapse. That was it. I'd committed. So 365 compared to one, I don't get it. AUD is recoverable. That's been said by the professors and doctors of the world. Harvard University have actually put a number on it, and that's 5 years. I believe, from your last drink, I believe you're recovered when you no longer have cravings, issues, whatever. It's not a thing. You don't think about it. If you're always thinking about it and you're thinking one day at a time and I'm always in recovery, it's in the forefront. It's in the forefront of your mind. Don't have it in your mind. Get on with the rest of your life. That's another one of my big tips is just make it not a thing. If that's not even a proper sentence, but a non-thing. Enjoy the now, enjoy the future that you're planning, plan your future. And the last thing is to have a cravings plan for those early days. What am I going to do in each and every situation? And do I need to stay away from certain things? I notice some people go to the pub straight away and they're like, oh, it was quite difficult and I was in the pub within a week, but it was all right and I got through it. Is that a good idea? Is it a good idea to drink zeros or 0.5 beer or wine? For some it will, for some it won't. I didn't. I don't think I even knew it existed when I gave up. But have a plan for each and every situation. Okay, I'm going to a wedding. What am I going to do when those cravings kick in? Because shit, they do.
They do. Big time.
I haven't had them for 3 years and 6 months. 3 years and 8 months. So I only had cravings for 4 months. Mindset. Every time I got a craving, I had one saying, and I blocked it out. I can't remember what it was. It was something along the lines of, I don't drink, I don't want to drink. And I just repeated that saying hundreds of times until the craving had gone. Blocked. Same thing every time. So I guess it was a basic form of some psychology. So for me, that worked really well. I didn't go to pubs, etc. But I do cook with wine now. I've got wine in my cupboard. I cook the alcohol out of it. I know for a fact, and I've talked to Steph about this. This is Steph Sober, who I'm friends with, who's got a pod quite big on Instagram. That I know I could drink alcohol if I wanted to. I've got the mindset now that I could, but I don't want to. And that's the winning, that's the absolute winner. I know I could go and have a pint, but that pint would put me into a mental state that I don't want. I don't want to feel like, so I don't. And I think that was the final bit when I went about 6 months ago. I went, I could, but I don't want to. And I was like, in eureka.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because, that's powerful. That's powerful. Yeah, that's really powerful. So you talk about this choices thing, right? You say it's mindset and it's choices. In the early days, right, when you're trying to quit, is it that simple? Is it really that simple? I mean, I work with people with addiction and they are struggling like crazy, like drinking and quitting and drinking and quitting, and they just can't get a grip on it. I mean, is it really that simple, or is it? Do you have to?
It was.
Or do you have to get to that again? That never again. I mean, that for me feels like it's that key, right? Because once you get to that never again and you feel it with every fiber of your being, then it's a little easier to make these choices, right? When every fiber of your being is screaming, no, I'm not going to do that.
It is. It's got to click. Now, I feel fortunate that I became so bad, there's no romancing going back to having a bottle and a half of vodka. You know, it's not like, oh, I could fancy a glass of wine. I mean, I was like drinking at 5 o'clock in the morning and necking neat vodka all day without mixing it and sort of going to vomit and then just necking more vodka. There's no romancing that. So I'm actually grateful. And people look at me like I'm strange, but I'm grateful that it was so bad. Yeah. So for me, it was an easy one in the end. I think if you're like a middle range or a low range drinker, it might be harder, but it's as hard as you make it. Going back to the likes of Ant Middleton, once you've made a shift and you've decided and you positively frame or reframe the way that you think in coaching terms, right? And it's not, people talk all the time on Instagram, it's like, I'm not sure, or can I, and change that to, hell yes I can, and I'll fucking knock it out of the ballpark, right? And you've got that positive growth mindset, which I kicked in real early, then it makes a big difference. So if you catch yourself going, I'm not sure, and then immediately repeat that thought in a positive way and do that over and over again, you will retrain your brain. Because our brains, as far as I've researched, are 2,000-year-old caveman-type brains with a fight or flight response and cortisol that kicks in and makes you anxious. So our bodies have I can't think of the word. Our bodies have moved on, but our brains haven't since caveman. It's a very clever but a very simplistic thing. And you can retrain it. And that's exactly what I did, is retrain it day in, day out, till the point. And in fact, I was almost going back to my forces days where you react, and it was the same thing. I didn't join the military or a Tier 2 Special Forces unit knowing anything. I went through the longest basic training in the world, 32 weeks, to know how to react to something in a firefight situation without even thinking about it. Your mates just had their legs blown off and you're throwing them onto a stretcher and you're not freaking out. Now, most people couldn't do that. But because of the training, you just do. But I had lost that. So I wasn't sort of banking on that mindset because that was gone. That was way gone. I was so deep into my addiction. Maybe I refound it, but I feel that I just started again. I felt like a child or a toddler that needed to just relearn, or somebody had had a traumatic brain injury who just needed to relearn. And learn I did. And all of those resources are out there on Instagram, books, audio books, and podcasts. David Goggins, the crazy ex-Navy SEAL who's stay hard. I mean, the guy's just an animal, but what he says is true. He's an animal because he's made himself an animal.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He made him.
He did. And he has a really powerful,
and that's the same for addicts. You make you who you are. You choose to stop, you stick to it, and you get on with it, and you retrain what's up here, and you'll kill it. Everybody's capable.
I love that. Let's just pause. Let's just take that.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Everybody is capable. I really believe that. I really believe that. Everybody is capable. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But you need the resources. Yeah. As an addict, very few people, including myself, will just go, oh, I'm stopping. And they might use sober Instagram, but listening to a bunch of people who most haven't researched the hell out of mindset or the likes, or listen to all these pods and that, just throwing ideas around. Yeah, it's useful and it's peer support, but are they experts on what they're doing? No. You only become an expert once you start becoming an expert by learning. And I became a life coach and then a mindset coach not for anybody else or to use it as a business, even though it may in the future. I did that to improve me. I did that for my mind. ICF qualified, and I did it for me, nobody else. So not to make money. Yeah. So I took it to the extreme. If you want to do that, if you need to do that, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about, you talk about letting go of your past and living in the now and focusing on the future, right? And when I work with people with addiction, they are all in the past. They're just stuck right back there with the dinosaurs and all the shit, right? So tell me a little bit about the importance of living today and looking into the future. Tell me about that.
I had a lot of hatred. I had a lot of weight on me. I was sexually abused by one of my bullies at school, a very psychotic guy. I lived with that without dealing with it forever. I've seen horrific things through my life through being homeless, through being in the military. I had problems with being adopted. I had problems with my mum marrying my headmaster when I was young. You know, I had issues with everything. I never got to grieve my grandparents because I wasn't even around for one, because I was on drugs and out in the streets. My beautiful grandfather I loved. I had hatred. I'd been in fights. I'd been beaten. And I let all that go. I just made another conscious decision when I stopped and I went, you know what? All this shit is really, really, really holding you back. So I forgave. I watched a program on people who in the US had regretted pushing for the death penalty. So it was families of people who had been murdered who had then been asked by the judge, did they want the death penalty for that person? And they said yes. And further down the line, they'd regretted it. And there was this document, and they said, we regret having that person put to death. Our hatred held us back. We forgive that person. Or we wish we hadn't. We wish we had forgiven. And I went, ping, light bulb, forgive. So I forgave instantly, everybody. I just went, you know what? You've got no power over me anymore. The freedom, the weight, oh my God, that just lifted off. And I just smiled. I had a little quiet smile and went, ah. Oh.
Yeah.
And it was easy as that, because I make everything simple. And I believe that if I can make it simple, because I'm not so, a friend of mine the other day called me superhuman, my best friend. And I said, I'm not superhuman. I have taught myself to be who I am now. And I've accepted that my past is my past. And I don't want it to have a bearing on my future, because that will hold me back. I don't want limitations, right? You coach. Talk about limitations holding people back. I'm free and I feel good. And I'm like that every day. I start my day, luckily I haven't had a partner for years, but as soon as I open my eyes, I fist pump and I whoop. And I'm like, today's going to be amazing. Oh my God. So by the time my feet hit the ground, I am pumped. I am literally pumped. The adrenaline's going. I've set myself up for the day. And it's just another example of how you do stuff. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to do it. And it's the same from the beginning, the middle, and the end game is all the same. You do it. You might need help. You might need the podcasts and the books, etc. But at the end of the day, you have to implement it. You implement it. No one do it for you, right? Yeah. And I keep that energy up through the day. I mean, I had chronic anxiety, which actually started when I stopped drinking. Now, most people say, oh, I gave up drinking and my sleep improved and my anxiety went away. No, my sleep went to shit and I got really, really, really chronic anxiety. Yeah. So I've had to work through that as well. And the power of positivity. and letting down those limiting beliefs. And just through the day, if a negative thought pops in, and Middleton's special, this one, there is always a positive in every negative. Always, every single time. However bad it is, you can find a positive. And I do that. Negative happens, I go, oh, but actually there's the positive. Rather than sitting on that negative, which then drags you down, right?
Right. Yeah, and spiraling. Before you know it, you're down the rabbit.
Absolutely.
Yes. 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 So what are your thoughts about relapse? Do you think relapse is part of recovery? Do you think it's part of the process? Do you think it's a slip? It doesn't have to be a fall. What are your thoughts about relapse?
I think if you relapse, you haven't got it right. You're not there. Okay. When you're there and you're 100%, you're all in, and you've got your why and you've got your plans and everything else, you won't relapse.
Okay.
If you relapse, it's a warning to you.
Yeah.
To say, revisit your the why, the plan, the everything else. I don't blame anybody for it. I mean, oh my God, I could never do that.
Yeah, no. But I think you're right. I think you're onto something. Relapse is a sign, it's a signal, it's a symptom that you're not where you need to be with this never again. Right? But
100%.
Never again. It's a signal.
Yeah, it's a warning.
Got it.
It's a warning. But if you keep relapsing, well, then you've really got a problem. Or lapse, relapse. I know there's a difference. I don't see a huge difference. So lapse is like a quick one, right? And a relapse is like a real.
Yeah.
And again, I see a lot on Instagram, people relapse or lapse, and then they get what's called the pink cloud. I didn't know any of these sayings until I joined Instagram, but the pink cloud, and they're like, oh my God, my life is so amazing. And then 3 weeks later, they're back to square one, and then the pink cloud, and then it just keeps repeating, and it frustrates the living out of me, I'll be honest, because I just want to grab them and go, oh my God, all the resources, I've got them on my page, I can help you, but you just keep rebutting. So they're not ready. They're not committed. Big word, commitment. All in, 110%.
And mind, body, spirit, soul, cells, everything, right? From head to toe, 100%. And
if you give yourself no option to fail, you cannot fail. No option. That was my mantra at the beginning. I have no option. Oh, shit, those cravings got bad early days. But the longer you go, the further apart they come, and then eventually they're gone. And then you're like, okay, I can go to a pub now, or I can go to a party, I don't like being around drunks. Oh, my God, no. I go to a party like an hour and a half early and I leave after an hour after it started, because as soon as people start slurring and repeating themselves and arguing, I'm like, oh, it feels like payback, because I was 100 times worse than that. And I'm like, no, I'm out. I'd rather watch Netflix. Thank you. Goodbye. It's not the alcohol have a problem. You could put me in a room full of alcohol. Wouldn't bother me. It's the people who are drinking the alcohol that bother me.
I hear you. So what would you do? This is question is close to my heart. What would you do with a loved one? If you're living with a loved one who is in active addiction and is just got their head in the sand.
Now that's interesting, because I lived with a functioning alcoholic partner, my last partner, Sarge, 8 years ago. Who got up at 5:30 in the morning to put her makeup on and get dressed to go to do an executive job, and every night drank 2 bottles of red wine and was literally stumbling and slurring. It was the most unattractive thing I've ever seen. And I was still an alcoholic myself. I was a functioning alcoholic. I wasn't at the 1.5 stage, but I would leave work and buy cans to drive home. It was every night. But I couldn't get through to her either. It was awful. It's the only time I've ever lived with, apart from my mum, somebody where I went, oh, gosh, You can't make anybody do anything. They have
say
to
that
do
again?
it themselves, right?
Can you say that again? Say that again.
You can't make anybody do anything. Anything. Right. And in this case, you cannot make them give up alcohol.
Okay, so I want to say that again, because I think I need to hear that. I want listeners to hear that. You cannot make anybody change, right? You can't. No. You cannot make somebody change. No. You can't make somebody quit. You can't make somebody go to therapy. You can't make somebody go to whatever. You cannot make someone change. They have to want it.
All of my girlfriends tried, and my wife tried, and failed. And I was the one that lost out because they were the ones that walked away and said, F this, I'm done. I cannot deal. You will not change. And the draw of the addiction was stronger than the love. And I've looked back on that one relationship with Rachel and my stepkids with so much regret, which I've also had to get rid of the regret as well as the forgiving people. Regret was something else I had to drop. But it's the one thing that does pop up every so often. I go, I regret that. And I go, you can't regret anything. But I lost the person I would have probably grown old with and the kids that I would have watched growing up from very young. And I stuffed it, and she gave me so many chances. But I actually got worse. So she tried. She tried. Her parents tried. She tried every type. She tried nice. She tried nasty. She tried hard. She tried soft. She tried mental health services. But it was never going to work because I was not ready.
Got it.
So I have no advice because I don't know. I'll only ever give advice on something that I know. But I couldn't live with a drinker in the future. Yeah, a moderate drink. Somebody who has, like my dad, a glass of wine a couple of times a week. That would be fine because having the alcohol in the house, again, doesn't bother me. But I couldn't live with somebody who's pouring poison down their neck and becoming disorientated, falling down steps and slurring. It just wouldn't happen. Yuck.
Yeah. So what's coming up for me is now, if you are living with a lover, then it's boundaries, right? It's like, where is your line, right? Where is your line? What are you willing to put up with and what are you not willing to put up? Where are the boundaries? Yeah, that's on you, right? That's on you. The boundaries are on you. Their choices are on them, but the boundaries are on you, right? When I'm saying me. I get to set the boundaries.
That's the $10 million question, isn't it? Is how do you get somebody to do something? And I just don't think you can. You can show kindness and you can show empathy in my case, but you can't get anybody. I mean, like my best friend, I won't say their name, but my best friend's partner is a functioning alcoholic who doesn't want to stop. And he's the nicest guy in the world. And he gets up 5:30 in the morning and goes to the gym and does a spin class, goes to work all day, comes home. By 8 o'clock, he's drunk as a skunk. And before he's drunk, he's lovely. After he's drunk, absolute twat. And I can't deal. And she can't make him. And she's asked me, how do I get him to stop? And I'm like, you can't. And I'm not going to push him because I know it won't work and I don't want to destroy our relationship. But I have said to him a couple of times, the health consequences. And he's like, yes, I do. The strange thing with him is, though, he does dry October, I think it is here, for a month easily, which I could never have done, and then goes back to it. And I'm like, well, if you can do it for a month, why would you then go back to chronic drinking? He drinks like 1, 2, 3, not as much as me, about 1, 2, 3, about 4.5 liters of whiskey a week, which is a lot by anybody's standards, right?
Body for that liver. Well, yeah. But
he's like, oh, my liver's buggered. Who cares? And I'm like, well, we all do, and your partner does, and your 15-year-old daughter does. But you can't.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, for everybody, it's different. You might find the pinch point and say something that finally makes them realize. But in many cases, people just walk away because they can't cope. Or like his partner, they'll stay. She's threatened to leave so many times over 7 years, but hasn't. Will she eventually? Maybe. I don't know. But I don't get too involved, right?
Right. Yeah. Again, your job is focused on you. Your job is focusing on you, right? And your health and your wellness.
Yeah. And I support the partner. So I listen to her and give my advice to what may or may not be the thing. But who knows? You cannot make somebody do something they don't want to do unless you put a gun to their head. And that's probably not advisable.
Probably not good at it. And probably temporary, right? Because as soon as the threat's over, they're going to be back to all the shit again, right?
Yeah. Like for me, it had to be the realization that I'd lost everything. And it was funny that it was music. My Spotify tells me monthly how much music you listen to, right? How many tracks. And so I listen to 42 hours of music a week on average. I love music, all genres. And I'd lost that. And that for me seemed like the final thing. I was like, I would get drunk on my own because I was a lone drinker most of the time, which is a real serious, then you're in, if you're not drinking with people. I don't think people would drink with me, actually, because I was so debaucherous or punchy, I'd fight. But I lost my last love, and that was music. And that seemed like, you've lost everything else, but you've got music. But when I lost music, I went, okay, what's left? There's nothing. And that for me was the pinch point, I guess.
Got it.
But it couldn't be better now.
I'm so happy for you. I really am.
Better.
That's awesome. And you look, people can't see it because they're doing audio, but you just have a great glow around you. You have this huge smile. You look really healthy. You just have a great energy around you. Just a lot of joy.
Good emotion as well. I had no emotion, because I'd blocked it all out. Now I used to be known as the hard man. Now I'm the opposite. I'm a great big sock. I've been watching Riverdale recently, which I absolutely love on Netflix. And man, I've had a tear rolling down my cheek because it's lovely or it's sad. Doesn't matter. I'll cry at anything now. I think all that emotion that I bottled up for so long comes out. But I glow, I smile, I cry. Yeah. I go through all the ranges. But I like that. I like crying.
Well, that's to be human. That's what it is to be human, right? Being fully human is all the range of emotions. Yes.
Yeah. The next thing is losing weight. I've got to lose another. I've lost 19 kilos. I've got to lose about another 19, 20. So that's my next goal. And that will happen.
Got it.
I don't. I said at the beginning, I don't fail to meet goals. I set a goal and meet it.
Yeah, no other doubt. I have no doubt, James, you're going to meet that goal. So as we wrap up here, I've got two more things. So is there anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to tell listeners at this moment? You've given some great tips and strategies. You've got those bullet points. Is there anything else you feel called to share?
I'll go back to what I originally said about that alcohol has no therapeutic benefit. It's just a poison. So I think everybody should try and take a month off and then really review at the end of that month, rather than go, I'm doing dry July. I've done it. I'm back to drinking. What's the point in doing it if you're not going to really review at the end of it how you felt and why you want to return to it? I've spoken to a number of clients recently who are like, you know what, I'm going to take a year off. You've convinced me with it being a poison and that it's non-therapeutic. Why am I doing it? And I'm like, well, exactly. Like, you don't like illegal drugs, but you drink the worst drug in the world that kills more people in the USA, right? According to the FDA, by far than all of the other drugs combined. Yet all we hear about is fentanyl and crack. Yet alcohol's killing way more than all of them. Fentanyl, crack, cocaine, amphetamine. So take that month off. Don't wait for dry July, sober October, whatever. Take that month off now and then look back. Maybe journal your way through that month, how you felt, possibly. And really review and go, what is it bringing to my life if I bring it back in? Like, people who say that they drink just for the taste are talking bollocks. Excuse my... Because
no, you're good.
I've tried Heineken 0.0, and it tastes exactly the same as Heineken. So if you're only drinking for the taste, Corona Zero, they're all the same. They taste exactly the same as the one that has the alcohol. So if you're only drinking for the taste, stop drinking the 5%. And for everybody, my last point is get into mindset. Start following the mindset legends on Instagram. Get all over Tony Robbins. Read mindset books. It won't just change your drinking patterns or your giving up. It will change every facet of your life. And you will watch the barriers come down and everything will become abundant and goals will be smashed. I mean, not just talking alcohol, everything and anything, right? And that, I think that's so important, that it's not just one thing that then leads to as many others as you can imagine.
Yeah, that's really powerful, right? So because it makes a lot of sense.
Those limiting beliefs that we talk about in coaching, you know, that I can't, I might not be able to, oh, well, it's too hard or whatever. And if you can switch that out to, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, like you said, the opposite, I can't, then you just say, yeah, I can, right? If you can say,
and you keep doing that,
I can't, you can literally say, I can.
It will happen. The next thing I'm into is manifesting. I've read The Secret and the other Rona Bynes books. But my friend Steph has recently done a month's manifesting course with Annika, who's a coach from Instagram. So I'm about to do a manifesting course, which I'm really excited about, which is, for people who don't know what manifesting is believing, seeing, tasting the thing that you want, and it will come. Like, I've already started with, when I first started, I was just kept thinking about daffodils all the time. And then I started seeing daffodils. It wasn't daffodil season, but I was seeing them on curtains or in books. And then I was wanting something. It wasn't things that I wanted. It was just things I wanted to see. And I'm like, whoa, okay, let's go next level. So manifesting is the new thing, because you're never going to reach your full potential. You're always going to want to learn more. If you're like me or like yourself, you always want to go a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. I'm never going to stop.
Yeah. Lifelong learning, right? I mean, that's what it's at. Somebody was asking me today about purpose. I have no purpose, or what's my purpose? And I said, you know what? I think everybody's purpose is to get up every day and try and be the best they can, right? That's everybody's purpose. Just get up, try and be the best you can every day until you die, and just make a difference.
Time on earth is very short. And I'm realizing about mid-30s, I went, F me, oh my God. Shit, like, you know, birthday, Christmas. I'm now nearly 48 and I'm going, okay, so I've only got like 27 years till I retire. No, 17 years till I retire. Whoa, what the hell? This is crazy. So if you're wasting days, you know, I mean, I don't even see a day wasted. What, like today, it's horrible outside. It's Saturday. I've just watched the All Blacks win over Italy. But I'm going to watch Netflix. That's not a waste, because I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing, right? But I'll have my phone and I'll be researching this. I'll pause my Netflix. I'll be like, oh my God, I wonder if Tony Robbins has got an update, or, you know, I'm still going to learn something today.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then you're going to give back, right? So that's the key. You're learning, you're growing, you're giving back, you're lifting yourself up, and you're lifting others up. That is purpose. That's purpose.
And be kind. Be kind, people. You might not agree. I mean, I've had so much hatred, and I'm not hateful towards anybody. I don't like the 12-step programs. I'm not saying the people within the 12-step programs are bad. I'm talking about the program and the person who invented them, not the people in them. But I don't expect to be abused by the people in them for not liking the process, because it doesn't work. It's got that's another subject which really probably haven't got time for, but it's got a very low long-term attrition rate after worldwide studies. But just be kind, be nice to people. My dad used to say, the smile you'll send out will return to you. And I generally find that in my life. I go around and I smile and I chat to people and I get really good responses. So be kind, smile, and stick with it.
Yeah. So that sounds like your last piece of sage advice, right? Like, really, if I were to ask you, what's your last piece of sage advice here for listeners, it would be kind, smile. Yeah.
And if you want to stop drinking forever, go back to the beginning, know your why, have your plan, be strong, and commit 1 billion%. No days at a time, just commit, get it done, and stick it into the past as quickly as you can. And honestly, you'll be where I am and killing it.
Right.
It's not hard. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. I'm going to put all those bullet points in the show notes. So check out the show notes. I'm going to put the books in the show notes. I'm going to put some of those links that you talked about in the show notes. If people want to find you or connect with you, where can they connect with you, James?
On my Instagram, James _sober_mindset master.
Thank you. And I will put that in the show notes too, so people can get there pretty quick. You know what? This has been a powerful, heartfelt, insightful conversation. I just really appreciate you and your time and wish you every blessing.
So grateful for the airtime, and I'm really looking forward to writing my book on this subject. I originally wanted to write a fiction book, and my dad was like, okay, you can do that, but you're going to do that later. You're going to write a book in the style of Anne Middleton, Ollie Ollerton, with your lessons on a very quick history of where you were at and then how you got to where you are now. And that for me is actually now really exciting. It's not a monetary thing. If it makes me a few dollars, that's great. But it's all about getting it out there and people being able to read, doing the pods, and as many ways that I can, spreading some hope, right? Because there is hope for everybody. Wherever you're at on the scale, there is hope.
That's beautiful. So that's what a great note to end the show. There is hope. And I thank you. Wish you every blessing. Take care.
Thank you, and you. Amazing. Goodbye.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your time. I love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Remember to grab your free hiking guide, and please take a quick moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Thanks so much. Take care. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.